Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Take Your Mark podcast. I'm your host, Emmy,
And I'm Ruchi.
and it's been a minute, but we're back.
We are back. I know y'all missed us. One, you missed us. And two,
You missed us.
you did. And two, we missed you.
We did. It's really nice to just be able to come here and chat for an hour and a half.
Mm-hmm.
I missed you,
Aw.
you know?
I mean, we did.
We've seen each other.
Yeah,
but
we've seen each other,
you know.
but not in this setting, not
Yeah.
in this context. Yeah. But yeah. Oh, I missed you too.
Thanks. Well,
But,
speaking of, how has your week been? I actually haven't seen you this week, so.
That is true because you ditched trivia.
Okay, I was sick. Well, actually, no. At that point, I was better. I was
No.
sick over the weekend when we were
Job.
supposed to hang out. Wednesday was job.
Yeah. My week has been good. Very normal week. Nothing really happened this week. I mean, trivia on Wednesday as usual.
How did the team do?
It was bad because it was so bad. It was just me. It was just me and one other person.
Yeah,
so
that's fair.
It was so bad. But it's okay. It was about the vibes.
Yeah.
And we exuded the vibes and we absorbed the vibes as well. We were there. It was great.
And you know what? We'll talk about this today. You can't always improve.
True.
We'll get into that.
Great segue. But anyway, back to the initial question. What's up with you? What have you done this week besides
had
job,
a busy week. Yeah.
interview?
Had applied to a job. I don't think I told you this. I applied to this job on Monday at midnight. So I got one of those emails from LinkedIn being like, "We think you'd be a good fit for this." So I was like, "Why not?"
Yeah.
Submitted my application at 11:30 or midnight on Monday. I got a call at 3:30 on Tuesday, and they were like, "Hey, can you come in for an interview on Thursday?"
Wow.
The whole process was very quick, and
Whoa. Okay.
was not expecting to have that as part of my week, but I'll take it.
Speaking of, I did an interview today.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
that's I don't know. It is kind of crazy now that you're on we're on opposite sides of the table for this now.
Literally,
and hearing
yeah.
that I mean, okay, the people who interviewed me both had been at that company for 20 plus years. But I've definitely had interviews with people who I'm like, "You're kind of young." And now I'm like, have they only been working there for 2 months?
No, literally. I was interviewing a guy who's probably about my age because he's about to graduate.
Yeah.
He's my age. He might be older than me. Let me be for real. He might be a winter baby and
Yeah.
might be older than me. He
Jobs
might be
are-
your age. And I'm I'm just there interviewing him as if I'm just this authority figure, which I guess in this case I kind of
You
have
are,
the power.
yeah.
But you know what I mean? It just felt so strange.
Yeah. The whole process
Yeah.
is just weird. Last week we had the career fair, and so I was just trying to sell myself to so many people. It's exhausting. And
No,
then
I
this
get
week,
it. I was in there.
Yeah.
I was
I can't
well,
wait to
I
be
was-
out of there.
I was there now I've experienced both sides of that too, because I did table at the career fair. So I've seen both sides, and I'm gonna tell you right now, tabling is so fun.
Yeah.
Being there is not fun.
Yeah. Although, okay, the one for the computing and information one, so empty this time.
No way.
It was weird.
People had jobs lined up? Is that
I
why?
guess. I don't know.
That's crazy.
Because also, I know so many people who don't have jobs. But
Well, then
it was
the
really
companies
empty.
the companies are shit. That's why.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah.
There were some pretty big companies that weren't there.
Really?
Yeah, or at least very big in the local economy who I was really expecting to be there who weren't.
Wow.
Wow.
Okay. Interesting.
Who knows?
Who knows?
Is us talking about jobs? Isn't it just so riveting, guys?
Oh, I'm sure it is.
Everyone wants to come home in the evening and sit down with their favorite podcast, come home from work and just hear us talk about work.
Hey, I mean, work's not a bad thing. It's when it takes over your life is when it becomes bad.
That's true. And that's what I'm really trying to avoid in
Yeah.
whatever job I end up at.
Oh, other
So-
update.
Oh,
You
yes.
can actually keep this in. You can keep this in. So I've been going on a wild goose chase trying to find out this YMCA, free YMCA membership that, according to the company, I get.
Oh, wait, really?
Yes. And I
Oh, the
found out,
company you work for.
yeah.
Okay,
And I
gotcha.
found out it don't exist.
Oh,
Heartbreak, pain. Like, Emmy, I was looking for this so-called free YMCA membership for like 2 weeks.
Is
I
there-
was asking HR. HR pointed me to this other HR person. That person pointed me to another like company center. That center pointed me back to the HR person. I was like, yo, I'm just going in circles. And then I found out that I didn't even get the membership at all. So rip swim.
is there any other like gym that the company has a partnership with?
No. They
All
wrote
that-
free YMCA membership on the flyer, and then it just was lies.
They were just lying.
Yeah, they were just straight up lying. And according to HR, it was like an outdated flyer. And I was
Gotcha.
like, okay, well, thanks.
I will.
So yeah, now tomorrow, it's going to be March. So tomorrow, oh, that also reveals the date of when we're recording this. But tomorrow,
Happy March, guys.
happy March. Tomorrow, I'm going to get a PFIT membership.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, it's functional. It gets the job done.
Hey, I need something.
Yeah.
So that's gonna serve that purpose. And it's not expensive, so. Hey guys, Editing Ruchi here. So just to update you, I don't have to get a PFIT membership anymore. I'm joining Master Swimming. Very exciting. I'm just so elated, so excited. Yeah, you'll probably hear more about it in the next episode, but figured since I'm editing currently, I'd update you and add this in here. So yeah, gonna be swimming again. Woo! Yay, I'm so excited. Anyway, enjoy the rest of the episode.
I will say, I know that YMCA does have like a family or household membership that you can get.
Mm-hmm.
And I also know that they don't actually check where you live.
Okay.
So, not naming names, my sister and some of her friends who do not live together have a family membership.
Uh-huh.
So, hypothetically, if I stay in post grad,
Family membership. We're related.
yeah,
We
we're
look-
so related.
We look the same.
We're twins. I mean, at least how we're dressed, you know.
Yo,
pretty
actually
similar.
though, we could have
Yeah.
ended up twinning today.
I was so close to wearing a green crew neck.
Ready to get started?
I am. Get into it.
So I will say that for
Trying to reread the
viewers,
questions.
viewers and listeners, we've already discussed this before. And this is yet another story where we messed up. So we're rediscussing this.
Yeah.
Because it's been a bit. And so we're coming to it with fresh thoughts.
Yeah. We might remember some stuff as we go, but right now, I'm so tired, dude. I don't have any thoughts, so I can't remember what we talked about.
I just remember the general gist, and that's okay because we're gonna talk about it now. We're gonna dive
Exactly.
into it. So
Please keep that in. For any listeners, we're
true.
just being dumb. Moving on. So,
Yeah.
ask the question.
So I'll ask the question. So obviously, I think we touched on this in episode 1. At this point, I barely remember what we've talked about before. But we talked about how like fitness made us feel good. But just to revisit that, why do you think it's important to like be active in terms of like its connection with mental health?
I guess I was going to start by just saying, like, obviously, you know, fitness and taking care of your physical self, we know that's connected to like having your mental health improve.
Yeah.
And I think for me, it's one of those things where I don't always notice it when I'm doing the fitness thing. It's only if I like stop having as much of a routine with working out where I kind of notice that I'm like, oh yeah, I'm doing a little bit worse right now. So I think for me, like the main, it's like I don't always, there's sometimes when I'm like, you know, you finish a workout and you're feeling really motivated. And I think that's kind of the acute connection that I have with fitness and mental health is like, finish a workout, you've got those endorphins, you're feeling good, especially if it was like, you know, a good practice or a good workout, whatever it was.
Yeah.
And so then I'm like feeling really good for a couple hours at least sometimes the rest of the day, sometimes I'm tired and it fades, you know? Depends
Yeah.
what else I've got going on. But I think more long term for me, it's like having that routine with fitness is really good for just keeping me kind of on track with stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And as when I lose that, it's kind of like I suddenly realize it's one of those things like, you know, when in the middle of winter, when you kind of like don't realize necessarily that you're like tired and sad. And then like today, there's one day where it's sunny and warm out. And all of a
Yeah.
sudden you're like, oh my God, this is what happiness is again.
Yay.
It's kind of one of those things where like
Mm-hmm.
I haven't worked out in a while and I'm like kind of feeling, you know, and then
Yeah.
I have a workout. And even if I'm like, you know, when you come back to swim after a little bit, you kind of feel like you're drowning the first time you swim because you like forget what you're doing. But even so afterwards,
Yeah.
I'm like, you know, I got a nice swim. I'm feeling good.
Mm-hmm.
Like I think for me that's the main way that I see it.
Yeah.
How about you?
The same, but I would add, and something I think I touched on it when we first recorded this, but I was thinking about what I said before, which was like how I felt more productive, more like focused, more energetic almost when I did swim, especially in the mornings, because you would get up, be exhausted, but then you would hop in a cold pool and it would wake you up. Okay, but it would wake you up.
Like I guess, but did I want to be awake?
Okay, well, it wakes you up, and then I feel like it was easier to make my energy kind of focused throughout the day. Like, it was almost like, oh, like after, practice, it was whatever class I had, and then it was, I could kind of focus in on that. And then same with all the other classes. And on top of that, what was also really good about swim, and we also did touch on this, was like my last period in high school used to be calculus. AP Calc didn't really go my way when it came to exams.
Fair enough.
And so whenever an exam was over, I always felt that like deep-seated like just
Relief?
depression.
Oh.
No, depression.
Oh, okay.
Because I always thought I failed it. Like it was like
Gotcha.
always I bombed it. But then, what was right after that? Swim. So I would get in the pool, and it was almost like the second I walked into the natatorium, the pool.
Dude, when I learned that word, that was such a day.
As I walked into the pool facility, it was almost like the second I left, all the other like stuff that happened to me during the day was outside.
Yeah.
So it was like kind of like a cleanse almost, like literally just de-stressing. Like
Yeah.
the second I hopped in the pool too, it was like all my focus again was there, not on anything outside.
I feel like we've talked about that with like swimmer calm kind of stuff.
Yeah.
It's like it gives you that reset time.
Right.
Where it's like you can't think about anything else really. I mean, you kind of can't if you're swimming just like going back and forth. Your mind can wander a bit, but it's like you can't.
That should be a whole nother episode. Sharing thoughts, what you
like
thought
shower
of.
thoughts, but like lap thoughts.
Yeah.
Stuff that you're like stressing over, trying to think through. It's like you can't focus on it when you're swimming for whatever. Like at least for me, I generally can't focus on it, so it kind of like forces me to just let it go and then come back to it.
Right. Yeah. We've been talking a lot about mental health and fitness and how swimming has impacted mental health, obviously swimmer calm and other things. But, also things that affect mental health are success and failure in different ways. So how would you say you measure success, especially with swim? Because it's something that can be quantified, but at the same time, I mean, we're now not hardcore competitive people. Not people, sorry, but in swim. We are hardcore competitive people, but in swim, we're not, we're not doing
that
it
as much
the same way. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
I think that's definitely something that's hard with swim because it is so easy to quantify it. Like there's a lot of, I'm thinking other sports like soccer. I mean, you can quantify it by like winning or losing the game. But especially,
Right.
Depending what position you play, you're not necessarily scoring goals, but there's other ways that you could be like, oh, I did this really well. Or I did that.
Yeah.
And you can still, you can do that with swim, but it's also really hard when there's such a, like, you finish your race and you have that immediate feedback of like,
Right.
you can see immediately how you did against other people
Mm-hmm.
and then also how you did against yourself.
Yeah.
And I think that, especially like growing up, you know, thoughts, words, you just immediately like, it's so easy to latch onto that as a metric.
Yeah. Because that's the only thing you see. It was either that or, and I think I said this before too, but it was either that or like the reactions of the
Yeah.
people around you. Like I remember, at least specific to me, my mom would work the computer. Your mom did too, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Data moms.
Data moms. So my mom worked the computer, and so she would be sitting like right on the edge. So like as you finish, you just turn your head and you see her.
Yeah.
And so like I would finish and it was like immediate, my first thing was scoreboard and then mother. Like
Yeah.
it was an immediate two things. So like I would look at the scoreboard. If I was happy, I was happy. If I was sad, I was sad, whatever. But then I would look at my mom, and even if I was happy with the time, my mom going like any of those, like, I mean, listeners, you can't see me obviously, but I just did a little frown and shook my head, and then also thumbs down.
Just, thumbs down is devastating.
Yeah, yeah, she did do that to me a couple times. But I think like that also immediate feedback, especially as a kid, it was like it was something that I looked out for specifically. So I think that also played into how I like measured success, because even if I was like, yo, that time, great. But then I looked over and she was like, I would be like, okay, maybe it wasn't that great. Like
Yeah.
maybe I didn't cook.
Because also as a kid, I feel like you're not as aware of like technique stuff yet. You're not as conscious of how you're swimming.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really hard to like, you kind of, you rely on your coach or your parents for that feedback. The only thing that you can really track is time.
Yeah.
And then you're like, you don't have that like, okay, time wasn't great, but like I, have been working on my underwaters and I hit those or something like that. Like you just don't have enough brain to do that yet.
Right.
So
Yeah.
it's like you're very reliant on this like quantitative, you succeed or you failed.
Mm-hmm.
And like, I think when you're younger, sometimes the time drops can be pretty big, but just with swim as a sport in general, like
Right.
the time drops are so small. So like
Yeah.
sometimes it's even just how accurate was like the person timing you
Mm-hmm.
could affect whether you saw it as a success or a failure.
Right. Yeah. That's a good point, I think. Like a lot of people don't understand how quick of a sport, in that like it could come down to hundredths of a second.
I have won races by 100th. I was like, this
Literally.
is like one of my favorite memories. It's the last race of the meet. The meet came down to this event
And you won
I was
it?
the last person. I dove in behind this girl at like
And you won it by
tail of the
100th?
relay. I think I won it by like 300ths of a second or something.
Yo, that's
Or
awesome.
maybe it may have been more. It was less than a second though, for sure. Like it was
Okay.
close.
Well, high five and don't fall off your chair.
I'll stay right here, make you lean over.
Oh, such a terrible high five.
But yeah, like in that case, it worked out in my favor. But I'm sure for that other girl, like she was racing her hardest,
Yeah.
and that just honestly, just me being able to rotate a little bit farther than her.
Made
And,
a
like,
difference. Yeah.
Yeah, and also that the meet came down to that too. Like,
Yeah. Yeah, that's crazy. I can't even imagine the emotion that comes along with her. Like
yeah,
you,
I felt a little bit bad, but that's probably
you,
one of my
like,
best memories.
the emotion, like your emotion too, but also hers, like both of them kind of side by side.
Yeah,
But yeah, that's wild. As a kid, I don't think my because it was so, I feel like as a kid it was so time focused, because of the fact too that we were trying to make championships and things like that.
Yeah.
It wasn't just about like I want a best time. It was like this is the time cut for, I don't know, A champs, or we have ABC champs, but A champs was like the one you wanted to
yeah.
get.
And that has a whole other level to it as well, because it's not just like, when you're just going for a best time, again, you can have that 100th of a second and be like, I did a little bit better this time.
Right, yeah.
But when you're going for like a goal time and trying to make a cut time, it's like I did better, but it's still not good enough.
Yeah.
And
You have like a benchmark. You have something to compare to.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I think now, as like we said, we're not really competing anymore.
Yeah.
And like as we got older, at least for me, especially as I got a little less involved in like the competitive side, especially with club, because club is where you have like a lot more meets to qualify for. And I feel like there's more levels to like how elite you can get with it, basically. Whereas then with like high school and summer swim, there's like championship meets to qualify for still, but you can't. It's like everyone's always working towards that at the end of the season. It's not like randomly, oh, you can get a cut time for this or you can get a cut time for that. It's like you're working towards the end of the season, you're building up to it. I feel so that got off track. But either way, as I got older, I think I like not that I cared less, but it was more so like I think it was easier because you were working towards that for the whole season.
Yeah.
Rather than it being like kind of one off, oh, I tried, I failed, I tried, I failed kind of thing. And just in general, as we got older, like I said, I think you become more aware of like other aspects of your swim.
Yeah.
And so even though it is still very time based, I think for like kind of the end all be all, but it was easier to pick out kind of other things of like, okay, I didn't get the time that I wanted, but like I said, maybe you've been working on your underwaters or your turnover rate or stuff like that. And like you could kind of pick out other aspects of your stroke or your race that it's like, again, kind of adding like I said, with the trying to get a cut time, there's like levels to failure, but then also adding like different levels to success.
Yeah.
And then now it's like, that's all we got.
Yeah.
I have no idea what my times are. I don't even race right now. It's fully just based on like, how strong do I feel at practice?
Yeah.
And some days you're not feeling great, but like, that's okay.
I will say though, I also kind of base it off of my times at practice.
See, I never keep track of my times at practice.
I don't keep track of it, but like if we do 100 race off the wall, I look at my time. You know what I mean? So like when I see that time, I'm like, hold on, I did this at practice. Okay. I kind of cooked. Or like, okay, wait, I still have like more to go. Or I felt terrible. Like, those were kind of, but it wasn't about beating it. It was more so about like improving. I mean, that is beating it. But like not just improving the time, more so improving how I felt.
Gotcha.
Like, underwaters feel good, or like maybe my stroke felt terrible, like I wasn't pulling, like the pull felt like I was sore and I wasn't pulling water, like I wanted to improve that. So yeah, now I haven't really swam in a while, so I don't have a metric or like a way to say, oh, I'm successful, because I haven't been in the water. But like when we were in the water in the fall, my metric was exactly what you said, like how I felt. Yeah. Not particularly while swimming, it was also how I felt out of the pool. Because I felt great. I was on like a good regimen and I felt great. But yeah, I mean, it's hard to measure it when there's no number, I feel like. Yeah. Because how do you say you're more successful in underwaters now than before? Like it's tough to measure that. Same with like your turns feel better. Well, they feel better, but are they better? Like, yeah, it's a fine line, I feel like.
But it's also like, if you're not racing, does it matter?
No.
It doesn't. Yeah, it's hard, but then like you still want to have some way
but then
of
what
measuring
goals
progress.
Do you have? Exactly.
Yeah.
Like, you need goals in swim, and at a certain point, like your technique's not going to get better. Your turns aren't going to get better. Yeah. At this point, it's speed. Like that's the like you said, the end all be all is speed.
I mean, I know for me, when we were swimming in the fall, like I think I told you this partway through the semester too. I was like, I feel way better at the end of our practices than I did at the beginning. Because at the beginning, I think our first practice was 2,800.
You mean like the beginning of the practice?
Beginning of the semester.
Okay.
To then. Because like our first practice was 2,800 yards.
Yeah.
I was dead by like 2,000. And I think we did 100 at the end. And I
We
was,
did 100 race. Yeah,
yeah.
we did.
And I was like, that last 25 was just like, just try and get to the wall. But then later in the semester, we did a practice that was 4,000 and I was able to do that. And like, not, I think I died a little bit, but like not too bad,
Yeah.
And we did 100 for time later in the semester. I have no idea if my time, I think my time was better.
Probably.
I don't really know.
I didn't
But the
keep
fact
track
like
of that.
that last 25 of it, I like actually felt like I could still push myself on it. So I think for me, like, I think it's harder to judge success that way if you're like, swimming more regularly, like you have a higher baseline. But because I hadn't been, I came in with like a really, honestly, probably still a pretty high baseline of all things considered, but like for me, a pretty low baseline. And so then I was still able to see a lot of progress throughout the semester. And I was like, okay, I've improved. And at this point, I've been swimming like 1 or 2 times a week. I'm doing like 2,600 yards, but I'm not dying, like I'm able to do that. My baseline's a little bit higher.
Hey,
So,
that's good. That's all you can ask for, is it? I don't know.
I could probably ask to swim a little bit more.
You could probably ask
but...
for a little more, but it's okay. You're doing great, though. Okay, failure. We haven't talked about failure. We've talked about success. So, failure. Thoughts?
I mean, I guess we've kind of talked about what failure is in swim.
Okay,
it's like not getting the time that you want.
Yeah.
But then, going back to our beginning of our conversation, how does that affect you? Like,
well, that
fitness helps your mental health. But what happens when the fitness doesn't seem to be working or going well?
But I do want to, before we get into that,
Okay, yeah.
we will. I want to take a step back because I think we talked about this, but I want to revisit it. We talked about how swimming is a sport that's really interesting because of the fact that it's an individual. It's individual and not it's an individual team sport and not like a full-on team sport. So I think that also plays into the failure thing because the failure almost comes onto you in 2 ways. 1, you let down the team. 2, you let down yourself.
Yeah.
And I think it's even more in swim because, again, it's quantified to you, right? With the team, like, for example, when I played water polo, even if I didn't score, if the team lost, I didn't always necessarily go, my fault.
Yeah.
Like, it was a shared blame with the team. But there wasn't any quantifiable thing that was like, you played terribly.
Yeah.
Whereas, like, with swim, I feel like it's much more obvious, like, hey, you did bad.
Yeah.
Because of the time, because you had that, like, quantifiable thing. So I think I thought that was a really interesting point to bring up just before we get into how it affects us. I don't know if you want to add anything else, you can add anything you want, but
I don't have a lot else to add to that. I feel like you kind of hit the point of like, it's just, there is more, this isn't, I'm saying there's more personal accountability, but which is not really how I mean it. Cause I don't want to say that like accountability just doesn't feel right in this context, but it is kind of the same thing of like, everyone does their part to contribute, which is the case with all team sports.
yeah.
But in swim, there's much more like defined, and I there are other sports like this too, but
track being one of them.
But yeah, like you are kind of just like, you're doing your own thing
for a team.
Yeah.
But it's like, it's really individual in that. Like, you're not, it's hard to explain because, like, for example, like a team sport like soccer, basketball, any of those, you're working with the team to like score and do well. In swim, you're just, you yourself are scoring points, swimming well for the sake of the team. It's not like you and the team are working together like that.
Yeah. Like
there doesn't need to be a connection.
Most of the time you're competing against your teammates as you are also all trying to do well.
All the time. Yeah. Yeah. So it's just, I feel like that I need to mention that as like an interesting dynamic that contributes to that feeling that you get after failing in swim. Cause it's a little different than I think failing in other sports, probably. I can't really speak on it because I've only done water polo and swim, but like I'm talking failure in both. But you can't. Can you speak on it either?
I played soccer for 1 year, and I played softball for a year and a half.
Hey, we are water creatures.
I ran track, but that's, same dynamic. So
we've only swam.
Yeah,
we just love this sport so much.
And I'm bad at everything else.
Yeah, I can't function on land. That's the problem.
Yeah.
And people know this. So I'm a fish. Both of us are fish.
Yeah.
Actually, I'd prefer to be a dolphin and not a fish. Dolphins are cooler.
Yeah. And they're smart.
And we are smart, so we're dolphins. Off track.
I was going to say I want to be the hot fish from Shark Tale. Do you know the one that I'm talking about?
No. I don't, which makes it way funnier. I'm just imagining a random fish.
I'm like 97% sure this is Shark Tale. That's like what the movie. I've never even seen the movie. It's literally just a meme that there's this fish, and so that was like when you said we're fish. That's just what came into mind. I don't.
Hold on. Can I see this fish? Do you have your phone? Can you pull it
yeah.
up? Yo, I want to show the viewers. We'll put it on. Maybe we'll get some people agreeing with you, like in the comments, being like, "Yo, Emmy,
who this fish is.
Emmy cooked."
Yeah, Lola from Shark Tale.
Look my God, she's a baddie. I do know her.
That's who I want to be. She, like I said, I don't even think I've seen the movie. I just know that she exists.
Yeah. That's hilarious. That's actually hilarious.
Like I said, lots of tangents today. Going back to what you said about that feeling you get after failing.
Right.
Talk to me about that.
Yeah.
What's that like?
Thoughts, feelings, concerns, emotions, comments. All
how does that affect you? Go for it.
Okay. So basically, when I was younger, I'm just going to start with kind of context before I dive into the question too. When I was younger, I got kind of thrown into swimming. We touched on this in episode 1, like how we got into it. So I got thrown in, and then, I started and I was like, wow, I'm actually pretty decent at this. And so then I set myself a goal. It was like, okay, I want to make JOs, Junior Olympics, for people who don't know. So like swim has Junior Olympics and then obviously like the regular Olympics. But I wanted to make JOs. And so that was like the goal I had set for myself. And I never made it. Like I never made it. But there was a bunch of years where I was really trying. And I think there was a lot of that, like I tried so much and there was just every time it was like beating a dead horse. Like I was just like, oh, you're not good enough. You're not there yet. You're not there yet. And there was even one year where I was like 0.2 away from it or something insane. Like I was very close. And it was for my favorite event, 50 fly. Favorite event.
Love it.
And yeah, it was just heartbreaking, like genuinely heartbreaking. And even in high school too, like I had goals of like getting into like districts and states, and I was trying really, really hard, and I just never got there. Like I made district consideration, so like alternate level 1 year, but other than that, I never like, and it was for 100 fly too. I had never like gotten to the point where I was like state level, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So like throughout the whole thing, I learned a lot because I failed so much. Not to make myself like a victim, but like I failed a lot. But I did a lot of failing.
I mean, that's the whole point of this conversation. It's like it's all part of the process.
Yeah, I mean, I failed a lot, and I mean through it I learned a lot, and I think I genuinely like this is something I talk about all the time, especially in interviews when they ask me about failure. Is like swim was such a good mechanism of teaching me how to come back from failure, because you would fail and then you had to meet within 2 days. So it was like you can't be sitting around moping for a day. You don't have that kind of time. You got to get back up, get ready, because you're gonna have to swim again, and so that kind of, I feel like that kind of forced me almost to get better with dealing with it, because there was so much stuff back to back that like you didn't have time to just sit around and be like, I didn't do well that day. And yeah, so you would just, take a step back, reset, take a night off, after a meet, take the night off, just chill, eat food, do homework. That's not
So
really a
that's
night
not a
off.
night off.
It's not a night off, but like I had homework to do. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Like we all had homework to do.
But again, like you just kind of
But
had to keep going.
it was a night off from like thinking about swimming, and I used to do a lot of like visualization in terms of like thinking about like how I wanted meets to go, especially because like our coaches were really enforcing things like yoga, visualization, techniques like that, like box breathing, like I mentioned, just for the sake of like being ready to compete. And so I think like I took a break from that as well, because it was like, let me get my mind off swimming completely, remove myself from it, do other things. But then, I would have to be ready for morning practice the next day. So it was like, take that night off, get to morning practice with, a newly lit fire, fuel, and it was like, okay, lock in. It's time to get back to work. And yeah, I did that since I've started swimming when I was 7. So like now I'm old, and it's been a lot of years. So I think that's not only translated to like keeping me good at it with swimming, but it's also translated to like real life, like other things that I do. Like when you fail exams, when you fail other things, like it's just taught me strategies when it comes to like coming back from the failure and not being the kind of person who just mopes over it, or just like you can reflect on it, but don't
dwell on it.
Yeah. Great quote. That's actually a great quote.
I actually wanted to ask you. So you said, you would kind of take the night off and then come back to practice the next day, like new fire, feeling ready.
Yeah.
Would you say then that like the failure itself, was the failure like a motivator then to do better, or was it more so just like reset, forget all about it, and just kind of come back? Like was that related to the failure, or was it just like, that's kind of your default was to have that fire and you needed the time off to get it back, or did the failure fuel it?
I feel like the failure wasn't motivating. It was very much like the reset almost like cleared my mental, I guess, like anxiety and all the other stuff that I had like in my brain, just like taking up space for no reason. Like it cleared all that out, the reset. And so then I would come back to swim, and like at the end of the day, I love swim. It's like I love it, like genuinely, like, and when we get to episode about probably like diet and other things, like I'll talk about more how much I love the sport and how much like low key was life saving. But I love the sport. So when I came back to it, it was almost like you just get reignited with that like love of the sport. Like you're just getting, and especially too, it was that, but also like teammates. Everyone around me was awesome, like very uplifting, supportive. You came to practice and they're the people you trauma bonded with, like,
Yeah,
bonded,
you're not wrong.
trauma bonded. And also like, I mean, at the time, I mean, now they're not necessarily my best friends, but like at the time they were like my best friends because I spent all the time with them. Like we were just swimming all the time. So for me, it wasn't, I don't even know if this is making sense, but it wasn't the failure that was motivating. It was just honestly fully internally that I was like, okay, time to go, lock in. And because I still had that goal. I still had that. It was like, okay, even if I didn't get it this meet, there's still another one.
Yeah.
So it was that. It wasn't the failure itself. It wasn't like the failure made me want the goal more, if that makes sense.
No, yeah, that makes sense. I was just wondering, there's discussions about, I guess like the carrot or the stick, do you...
I've never even heard of that, but okay.
Oh, okay.
Keep going.
So the stick is like a punishment. The carrot is a reward. And it's
like
basically like
beating someone.
Yeah. So
okay.
It's, do you motivate people, encourage people, force people to do better by using a negative reinforcement like failure, or is it the reward at the end, the positive reinforcement that's more motivating? And so I was just wondering if it was like, was the failure like something that pushed you, or was it more so that was something that like you were using love of the sport something to overcome? So
it wasn't the stick. Well, what about you? I've talked for
What was the question?
way too long. Exactly what I'm saying. Talked for way too long. Yeah, how does failure affect your mental health? How have you dealt with it? I guess that was the train of thought there.
Yeah.
Start with the first one. How does failure affect you?
I would say I'm a pretty sensitive person. So I definitely think that like failing was something that I felt like a lot. You know,
Right.
when I was younger, like I would be that kid who, you know, if a race didn't go well, I would cry. You know?
Oh, I was that kid even in high school.
Oh, same.
Trust.
No,
Yeah.
me too.
Trust.
But at that point, I was like, oh, this is embarrassing. Like I shouldn't be crying over this.
Dude.
But it is still like it sucks. So yeah, I think like I definitely got like very attached to it, especially like you were saying, you know, there you have these goals you're working towards. For me, especially on my summer team, there was pool records that I was like really going for.
Yeah,
you
were on another level. Like I wasn't going after pool
there
records.
were like when I was doing more club, I never really kept track of cut times for club that much. But there was one year where I was like, again, JOs. There's this other like big regional meet that had really similar cut times to it that people were trying to make their times for. And I think like I don't know, I just at first it was really hard to kind of like you were saying, it was at first it was hard to get out of that like I failed, this is terrible, the meet's ruined. And I think over time I had to be very like conscious about, you know, okay, it was one bad race.
Yeah.
That's okay. And if it was two bad races, that's okay too. I think as I kind of got older and started to focus on things other than times, like I said, obviously times was still a big factor that contributed to like
100%.
yeah, because that's the sport because you're trying to go fast. Like you can't get away from times being a metric in how you measure your success. But I think as I got older, I put more effort into thinking about, I think I mentioned this, I think this was an episode that was published, about how like when I'm thinking before a race, I had to stop thinking like this is the goal time I want to have and more so think about like, okay, I'm going to do this and this during the race to try and get it. Yeah. And so I think I kind of had to take that same mindset and contribute it to the thoughts about like, you know, if I didn't get that best time, okay, what are some things I want to work on?
Yeah.
Or like, what did go well? And kind of taking it away from, like, when I said at the beginning, like, you know, I felt the failure a lot, it was very easy to make it like a value judgment on myself, especially like you were saying with like, I mean, my mom was always really like very supportive and she wasn't a swimmer. And she was always very like, you know, you're probably swimming faster than I could anyways, even though you're 8. Like, I'm not going to tell you did badly.
Newsflash. I love my mom. No disrespect. I know she's going to text me and she's going to be like, Ruchi, you actually felt that way? And I'm going to be like, yeah, but like, no, I don't, it's fine now.
We're
like,
good
I'm
now.
older. Yeah, like, it's okay. But yeah, no, she also hadn't swam before, which I think is even funnier. But anyway, sorry, continue. Very supportive.
Yeah, so like, but like coaches and teammates and stuff, and that even if, you know, they wouldn't outwardly be disappointed necessarily, but like, you know, when you're doing well at something, there does start to be that expectation, and then you feel like you disappointed them when you don't do as well. And so I think it was, when I was younger, it was very easy to make that a value judgment on myself. And that was much harder to get, you know, kind of bounce back from and be like, yeah, okay, sometimes it's a bad race.
Yeah.
You know?
Like races don't define you.
Exactly. And I think that was now, like, as I got older, it was much easier. Well, it wasn't easier, but I worked at it and I did it, even if it wasn't easy, to be like, okay, the race didn't go well. And like kind of being able to think about it as a race separate from me as a person.
Right.
And just be like, okay, you know, why? And I get what you were saying, like you could reflect on it but don't want to dwell on it. And I
Yeah.
think again making that shift from value judgment to just like thinking about it was
Hmm.
kind of that shift for me of
Yeah.
being able to reflect on it. Because also so many times there were like other external factors. Like if I'm disappointed about a race, it's like, okay, you were sick last week. Of course you're not
Hmm.
going to do great. And
Yeah.
being able to like look at the external factors,
Hmm.
maybe like I was really nauseous before the meet and didn't eat anything. Of course you're not going to have a ton of energy, you
Yeah.
know, stuff like that.
Hmm.
Um and that helped me work through it a lot more as I got into high school.
Yeah.
And then especially in even I mean into college, then I just was like, yeah, you're only swimming once a week. Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
If you're disappointed about the times, change that.
Yeah. um yeah, I think something else too, which we mentioned earlier, was also that like it's impossible to improve every single
Yeah.
time with how much we swim. At least like, I mean, now, okay, don't include now, but
Yeah, now doesn't count.
yeah, now is just, we're swammers at this point. But like before, when we were in high school and before high school, the meets, like I don't know if people realize how often meets were. Like meets were, at least for me, at least twice a week.
Yeah,
I
I
think
had them.
mostly like Tuesday, Thursday meets were like a thing for me. I don't know you.
High school meets were once a week, summer meets were twice a
Okay,
week.
we had twice a week meets in high school as well. So we were swimming so much, like competitively, even to the point where it was like you didn't have that kind of like, you couldn't improve. It was literally impossible. Like
Yeah.
you cannot drop from Tuesday to Thursday to next Tuesday to next Thursday to next.
Yeah.
It's like you can't do that. Like it's not possible. Especially as girls too, I think, because our puberty is earlier. So we've already gone through that kind of spurt and that
Exactly.
time
Yeah.
drop to when you hit high school, it's not possible. Like
Yeah.
you're at your, like, you're not at peak, but like you're you're not at the point where you're just massively dropping like that,
Yeah.
like you were as a kid.
And I think that that's another big transition growing up in the sport is going from that like, oh my God, I dropped 10 seconds randomly, which
Yeah.
sometimes that would happen at, you put your tech suit on, you've been tapering. You would occasionally still get those big drops. Like you did.
Yeah,
Um,
freshman year, 15 seconds, but it was a 500. I want to clarify, it wasn't like 100 or a 200. It was a 500, so 15-second drop is valid.
yeah. But even so, like, and those felt incredible. But like that's not an every week thing. Like it could
Yeah.
be when you're
Yeah.
an 8 and under. And I think also I started swimming year round a lot sooner than my friends. Even a
Okay.
lot of my friends didn't swim year round at all. But that also meant that, coming back for summer season, we'd all get together and my friends would see like massive time drops because
They
were
hadn't swam.
they hadn't swam.
Yeah.
Whereas I wasn't. And I think that
So
was
you had consistent times that you knew
exactly
for
like
the
I got
spring, whereas they didn't.
yeah, like I was more consistent sooner, which should is not a bad thing,
Not at
but
all.
it was kind of hard to be like, oh my God, everyone else just got so much better. And I didn't, even though
But you
it was
did.
just a slower,
It was just gradual. Yeah.
yeah. But as you get older, you stop having those big drops. And just in general, your times just get more consistent because, again, you can control yourself better.
Yeah.
And I like having you get used to it, but it is still like it just kind of sucks going through that when you're like 10, 11, 12 and realizing
Yeah.
like, oh,
This
yeah,
is
that's not
it.
going to happen.
If you keep, like, when you fail, you can't, I don't know, you can't always improve. So it's
Yeah.
always like be like gracious. Like don't, think about it as like I need to keep improving, because sometimes it's just not possible. And that's literally exhibit A. It's like trying to improve from Tuesday to Thursday.
Yeah.
Tough ask a lot of the times. Tough ask. Like
Yeah.
you're not going to get like you had 2 practices in between Tuesday and Thursday.
Yeah.
You're not going to suddenly become 3 seconds faster. You're just not. Like, I'm sorry, but yeah.
Yeah. I've two
That
thoughts.
too.
One, I think having such like frequent meets and kind of like almost check-ins with your time too also makes it harder because
Yeah.
you forget where you started. So like I'm sure, you would see improvement from the beginning of the to the end of the season.
Yeah, you would just have best times memorized. You wouldn't have like first meet times
Yeah.
memorized. Yeah.
But like you would still see that.
Like
But
if we were to
you would have
graph
to
it,
like
yeah.
yeah, but you'd have to zoom out and that's a lot harder when like you said you're in it and you're just constantly going. It's a lot harder to be able to step back and see like
Yeah.
oh no, I am still like again, maybe I'm not hitting that best time, but from where I started the season, look at where I am now. So yeah.
That. And then also like middle like if you mess up one meet, let's say like one meet you don't do well and you mess up. It in the grand scheme of the graph, it's not going to look like you suddenly failed big time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like you're still going to have the naturally like if you improved, if you did better. Yeah. But you're still going to have that natural curve. So I feel like that's also something too is like one mess up doesn't ruin your whole season.
Yeah.
You know? One mess up at the end of the season could, but one mess up during the dual meet season does not. But anyway, sorry, your second point.
And then the other thing was like what you were saying with Caleb Dressel, where he's kind of said like, "Hey, I don't think I'm going to improve anymore," and like, kind of, but he still wants to maintain where he's at.
Yeah,
I think that is a really hard balance to find, and I think that's honestly probably kind of where we're at now.
100%.
Just like, if we were elite athletes, sure, maybe we haven't hit our peak yet, but like with our lives, like that's just not going to happen.
Yeah.
And so like, but I think it's really hard to kind of accept that, but also maintain the motivation to keep going. Because I think it is kind of a slippery slope. Like I was saying, we've been talking for a while, way back at the beginning about how like, if I'm not working out regularly, I kind of start to notice that I feel worse. But I think it's really easy even if you've kind of accepted that you're not going to get better, I think there is still, like, at least for me, there's still a part of me that would kind of see that as a failure, even though I'm not as emotionally attached to it as failing. But I think it is still easy to kind of use that as like, okay, I'm giving up.
I'd say too, like, it's really hard to even accept that because you always, I feel like this is just a general human thing. It's like you're always looking to improve. That's the next goal, the next thing you want to get to, right? So it's really hard to kind of just say, this is it. This is my peak. You know what I mean? Like that fact, I feel like in itself, devastating. Like just thinking about that, being like, I've hit my peak. What? Like what? What do you mean I've hit my peak? Like what?
And you know what's also, I think this is a common thing. Have you ever like tried something new that you are objectively a beginner at, but you kind of have that thought in your head of like, oh, I'm just gonna be naturally great at this actually. Like I'm gonna try it for the first time and I'm actually gonna be great at it.
So I actually never do because I automatically think I'm gonna be terrible at everything.
Okay. So I can, again, intellectually I can know that I'm gonna be terrible, but there's still that little like hope in my head where I'm kind of like, oh, I'm gonna be the exception. I'm gonna be great at this when I first start and like I'm going to be special and impress everyone. And so I think there's a little bit of that with swim where I'm like, I can recognize that like, I'm probably never going to be training at the same level as I was again. So I'm probably not going to race at the same level as I was.
Yeah.
But there's still that little voice in my head that's like, but what if you're different and you're actually just going to hop in and swim a best time right now? And again, at this point, I can recognize that, like, it's wishful thinking. Like, that'd be cool, sure. It's not going to happen. Yeah. But I think it is, like, part of that is what makes it hard to, like, 100% accept it. Because there's still that little bit of me that's like, but what if you're special? And I am special.
No, I'm special. But I don't know if you're ever going to improve again.
Exactly. No, like, again, and I can know that. I can know that.
Yeah. No, I mean, but it's just a tough fact. It's such a tough fact. I mean, I don't think to this day it's easy to accept that every meet will not go your way. so much harder to accept that you've hit your peak.
Mm-hmm.
That like fact is just like, I don't even want to think about it, because like that automatically means that you're on the you're going downhill from here. You know what I mean? Like, and then that signifies age. Like, you know what, like things like that. It just starts to become like, okay, this is sad. You know what I mean? So like, I think I don't think I'll ever be able to accept the fact that I've hit my peak. But
do you remember like when you first started kind of like conceptualizing the idea of like being afraid of like, oh no, have I hit my peak?
it was high school.
Same.
It was high school, and it was especially prevalent when I compared myself with other people, and like I hit like a time, let's say, and then other people started to beat the time, but then I wasn't, getting there. I was like, hold on, was that my peak? Like, did I just hit it? And maybe I did. Maybe I did. But low key, I might have, but that's besides the point, because I haven't hit my peak yet. I will never accept the fact that I've hit my peak. But
what if you're special?
I am special.
Yes, we are.
I mean, we're going to be really old. We're going to be in our 50s and 60s.
Breaking world records.
And we're going to be elite swimmers. We're going to be in the Olympics. It's going to be a
like
30-year journey. Exactly.
Yes.
Except we have not competed in Olympics prior.
Well, there's still time. Aren't they? They're in LA.
They are in LA. We have not been training, though. You've been doing 2,800 yards a week.
Hey, I did 3,800 actually.
Really?
Just so much better. Well,
that is way better though.
I did 2,800 one day, and then like another 1,000 or so another day. So like.
Oh, okay.
And I
I thought you were saying 3,800 a day. I was
No.
Yo, Emmy?
No, that'd be crazy.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was saying. Like, you need me to do that amount of yards. Like, I need to like be there to push you with endurance.
Yeah. Well, and also, I just don't feel like writing a set that long for myself.
Yeah.
Honestly.
Fair. I mean, that's fair. But writing sets is not that bad. I find it sometimes fun. Sometimes is the key word.
Yeah. If I have an idea for it,
yeah,
then it's great. But sometimes
But then you run out of ideas, and you're just repeating stuff, and you're just like, this doesn't sound like a fun practice.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was a tangent. But yeah,
this episode,
very tangential.
Like in terms of technology, fingers crossed, best one yet.
Yeah.
In terms of content, we are a mess today.
We are a mess today. But I guess that's the joy of it, right?
Exactly.
Like, they get to see the shit show.
Yeah. You guys are here to hang out with us parasocially.
Yeah. Well, to close it off, we had a lot of good conversation all over the place, honestly. But hopefully
there were some salient points about failure.
Yeah. Do we have any advice, any wisdom we want to share with the viewers and the listeners about failure and, I don't know, how to overcome it, how to deal with it?
I mean, I think for me, I kind of mentioned this, like the biggest thing is just failure doesn't define you. You're always going to fail at some point, at something.
Yeah.
Maybe it'll be a lot, but like that, it's fine. It will, it's going to suck.
Yeah.
I don't want to take away from that. It is going to
feel genuinely bad. Though, if it didn't suck, I'd be concerned, because that means you don't care about it.
Exactly. Like failing and having it feel bad just means that you care about it.
You care. Yeah.
And that's a good thing. Like, you want to care about stuff because, you want to do well at it.
Yeah.
Of course you're going to care about it. But like, just kind of remembering that like failure is part of the process.
Yeah.
You can learn from it.
Yeah.
And then you'll keep going, and it's all just part of the graph.
Yeah.
Sometimes maybe there'll be outliers, and that's okay.
Yeah. Bringing in graphs all of a sudden.
Well, we talked about the little over the course
when you
of
did this, I thought wave, and you said graph.
I could see it in my head.
Oh, I definitely know that you saw it in your head. I
started talking about graph theory last night.
Oh my god.
At the bar.
At the bar. I'm keeping this in. What? Emmy.
I'm surprised I have friends.
Literally making me making me doubt. Wait a second, what? Wait, why am I friends with you again?
Hey, you know what?
Algorithm?
I talk about graph theory and I do my Duolingo at the bar and I have a good time.
Look. That's why we love you. You know, you're
Thank you.
you're just unique, you know.
Yeah.
You're special.
Yeah. And I'm going to keep improving forever.
Me too. I will never, ever, ever fall off.
Yeah. That's actually our real conclusion from today.
That is our real conclusion.
You guys will forever keep improving at what you set your mind to.
We will be, but they won't be.
Oh.
We're special.
But our listeners are special too. We love them.
Are they?
Okay, well,
can I be a
Ruchi's
hater?
doubting you. I believe in you. I'm the carrot. She's the stick.
That was really good. I'm the stick.
So I think we're gonna wrap up this slightly unhinged episode there.
Yeah.
Hey, thank you.
Unhinged in a good way. We yapped, which is what we said we'd do. So we've done it.
Yep.
Did you want to outro it?
No, you got it.
Okay.
You're our outro person.
Okay. Yeah, because you're the intro person.
Yeah.
That's why we work.
Carrot, stick, intro,
carrot,
outro.
stick,
it works.
Yeah. Okay, well, that was episode 5, which I'm so proud of us because genuinely we tried, twice to film episode 5, essentially.
Yeah.
And so I'm glad we finally made it. So that was episode 5. Thank you all for viewing and listening. Thank you guys so much. We appreciate it. We love the feedback that we've gotten. Yeah. What else? Leave comments. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. It should just be Take Your Mark Pod or somewhere. Just search Take Your Mark and you'll find us. But at Take Your Mark Pod on Instagram, you definitely can find us there. And I will post the YouTube link so you can get the YouTube channel as well. What else? Follow us on Spotify. Like the video. Leave us comments. I already said that, but leave us comments everywhere.
Leave us more comments.
Yeah. And yeah, I think that's it. I think
you covered everything.
Yeah, I don't think I missed anything. Thank you all again, and we'll see you in 2 weeks.
Yep. Bye.
Cute. What's the outro this time? Like the thing that we leave at the end.
You like jazz?